Remember Castle Crashers? If you had an Xbox 360 in the mid to late 2000s, I'm sure you remember this gem, or at least had a few buddies on your friends list who were playing it. A lot of people, including myself, are becoming nostalgic for games like Castle Crashers, so today I decided to take a look at the development and creation of Castle Crashers and how we ended up with the game we all know and love today. What I found was pretty crazy. The development was influenced by the boom of the web in the mid 2000s, the explosion of flash-based animation games on Newgrounds.com, and the developers were robbed in broad daylight during the development of the game. Did you know that Castle Crashers started out as a GameCube game? I think I've been able to piece together a pretty decent puzzle on the events that led up to the release of Castle Crashers. It's a roller coaster of a ride, so let's jump in and take a retrospective look into the creation of Castle Crashers. Castle Crashers is a 2D side-scrolling hack-and-slash game developed by the Behemoth. The Xbox 360 version, which will be the version we focus mainly on during this video, was released on August 27, 2008 via the Xbox Live Arcade Summer of Arcade. It is the brainchild of programmer Tom Fulp and lead artist Dan Paladin, who created the development team, the Behemoth. There are a few other members of the Behemoth, but for the majority of this video, we're going to take a look at what Tom Fulp and Dan Paladin were particularly up to. The Behemoth was created to port the internet flash game hit Alien Hominid to console. Alien Hominid was created by Tom and Dan for Newgrounds and was then ported to console. The Behemoth is the development team responsible for the console release and eventually the release of Castle Crashers. Alien Hominid was a massive success and was truly the first crucial pillar to the success of Castle Crashers. The PlayStation 3 version was released in North America on August 31, 2010. The Steam version was released on September 26, 2012. On June 15, 2015, the Behemoth announced Castle Crashers Remastered for Xbox One, while the Steam version received it in the form of a free update. The remastered version features higher quality textures, uncapped frame rate, performance improvements, and an additional minigame. This version later released for the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4 on September 17, 2019. Castle Crashers truly shines with its simple but engaging gameplay, light RPG elements, and the support of 4-player co-op either locally or online. So, how did we get here? How did Castle Crashers become the cult classic that we all know and love today? I believe it's a combination of a few things, but most importantly it's a fantastic game combined with a timeless art style. But the Behemoth had some help from Microsoft and the explosion of the web in the mid-2000s, led by users of Newgrounds. Tom Fulp, the main programmer and founder of Behemoth, was also the founder of the very popular site in the mid-2000s, Newgrounds. As a background for anyone who isn't familiar with Newgrounds, it's a user-generated content hosting site that has games, films, audio, artwork, and much more. In hindsight, early 2000s Newgrounds might have been my favorite time on the internet. It felt so full of life and truly like the Wild West for a kid like me. Newgrounds, in my opinion, plays a very important role in the success of Castle Crashers. Tom's blogs on Newgrounds, which was a source for a lot of the content in this video, details a journey of a small team of developers not only creating one of the greatest console arcade games ever, but also managing the explosion of their website Newgrounds as a flash animation and games exploded in the mid-2000s. Newgrounds is a cornerstone of internet culture today, animation, and for independent developers. In my opinion, Castle Crashers is a cornerstone of gaming culture today. Games today rely on exclusivity on the internet for marketing. Tom Fulp and the Behemoth developers used the internet for Castle Crashers before it was common practice and captured lightning in a bottle with both Newgrounds and Castle Crashers. Journey begins in mid-2005. Castle Crashers had a 3-year development period. Castle Crashers was technically first revealed on July 14, 2005 at the San Diego Comic-Con. However, Tom Fulp has a few blog posts on Newgrounds that reveal the game a little sooner. Before San Diego Comic-Con 2005, Castle Crashers was known exclusively as the Behemoth's next game. On June 20, 2005, Tom Fulp posted a blog on Newgrounds titled G4 Co-Hosting, announcing that Tom would be co-hosting the popular at the time show, Attack of the Show, on G4 TV. In this post, he also announced the new console game the team had been working on since Alien Hominid. Tom said, "We'll be unveiling our new console game at Comic-Con in San Diego." He goes on to encourage feedback on the reveal. On July 8th, 2005, Tom posted another blog hyping up the announcement of the Behemoth's next game, which we will use as the name using forward at Comic-Con. Next, on July 11th, Tom posted a blog titled "Calm Before Comic-Con Storm." This post is important because we learn here that Castle Crashers, the Behemoth's next game, was initially designed for GameCube. We also start to learn a bit more on what the Behemoth's next game is or will become. The last bit of information we have leading up to the official reveal of the Behemoth's next game is on July 14th. This blog post by Tom after the Comic-Con Pro Night. From this post, we learned a few things. There was a playable demo for the Behemoth's next game on GameCube. That exists somewhere out there, so that's cool to think about. And second, we get a look at how ahead the Behemoth were on the times. Most other companies would never show a game. Now that's an unfortunate norm that companies do. What the Behemoth and Tom did right was listen to the general public and in the end, released a timeless hit that became Castle Crashers. July 14th, 2005 marked the kickoff of San Diego Comic-Con and the first public look at the Behemoth's next game that would get its real first name during Comic-Con. Let's take a look at the Behemoth's booth at Comic-Con and footage of the very first playable demo of Castle Crashers. So this is a blog post on the Alien Hominid website recapping the Behemoth's next game at Comic-Con 2005. Most of the content here is for Alien Hominid, but there are a few screenshots of the public's first look of Castle Crashers. I was able to find some footage by Unseen64 on YouTube. Be sure to check them out for an archive of beta and canceled games of the first demo that was aired at Comic-Con 05 for Castle Crashers. You can really see how drastic the art style changed over time. The overall tone and design of the knights would eventually change. I believe this footage and the pictures from the Behemoth's trip to Comic-Con are the first look the public got at what would eventually become Castle Crashers. During Comic-Con 2005 and directly after, gaming mediums such as Idle Thumbs, 1UP, and IGN began posting articles on the Behemoth's next game, where even more details were given. After the storm that was Comic-Con 2005, Tom posted a blog on Newgrounds on July 20th, 2005 with some links to all the gaming mediums that posted the Behemoth's new game, now known as Ye Olde Side-Scroller. From these articles, particularly the 1UP article, we learned that while the demo was running on a GameCube at Comic-Con, there is no confirmed platform, release date, or publisher at this point. Fulp estimates that the game may ship roughly a year from now, and given its state, he notes that it probably won't be seen for a while after Comic-Con. An important piece here is the IGN article that was posted out of Comic-Con has much more significance. I'm not sure why IGN was given the green light to rename the Behemoth's next game, but in the article that was posted at the same time, we got our first look at the first unofficial name of Castle Crashers. It's now known as Ye Olde Side-Scroller, or YOS, per the Behemoth suggestion. I think Tom or someone at the Behemoth gave IGN this privilege. Maybe it was for some sort of mutual deal where IGN gets to announce the name for guaranteed exposure on the website. Lastly, the platforms IGN lists are interesting, and cool to think that there were plans for Castle Crashers on PS2, Xbox, and GameCube, which is an entire generation of consoles that the game would end up not releasing on. On July 28th of 2005, Tom Fulp referred to the game as Ye Olde Side-Scroller when answering a question on a different Newgrounds game, created by Tom, fueled inspiration for Ye Olde Side-Scroller. A month passed as the Comic-Con demo hype slowed down. Tom Fulp would frequently post updates on Newgrounds about the site itself and his plan on purchasing office space to move into. Keep this office space story in your back pocket for now, as it becomes an important piece later on. On July 28, 2005, Tom posted a blog titled Interview Office Stuff. And in this blog he alludes to the team being hard at work at Ye Olde Side-Scroller, and the Behemoth team begins to grow. Tom stayed pretty quiet on Ye Olde Side-Scroller during September and October, assuming he was busy with the office setup and development of the game. In October, the Behemoth's website got an update from its fun flash game setting to an actual useful site to prepare. With this update began the Behemoth dev blogs, which we'll be using to learn even more about the creation and development of Castle Crashers as we continue. On October 25th, the Behemoth posted working on the next game update, with photos that include booth setup extras, a GameCube, and some games. The pictures are really low quality, so it's pretty hard to make any of the games out. Blog posts continued on the Behemoth website and included updates on Alien Hominid, IGN Live 2005, where the Behemoth had an Alien Hominid booth, and office development updates. Tom was active on the Newgrounds boards, talking mostly about Newgrounds and a guest appearance on G4. November was pretty quiet when it came to Ye Olde Side-Scroller. Things wouldn't pick up until December of 2005, when the Lyon Game Festival would take place in Lyon, France. On December 2nd, 2005, Tom posted to his Newgrounds blog. We learned that the demo we saw at Comic-Con has been completely changed, and the game has gone through some big changes, and the game will be pitched to publishers at the conference in Lyon, France. So next up in the story, we travel to Lyon, France for the Lyon Game Connection. After doing a bit of research, I learned that the Lyon Game Connection is a place where developers are able to set up private conference rooms and show off games to publishers in hopes of having a large publisher pick up the independently developed game. It's not a game convention that's open to the public like Comic-Con. Information is and was pretty scarce on this, but I think with what I found, we can paint a pretty decent picture. Dan Paladin, lead artist, was also active on the Newgrounds boards during Tom's trip to France to pitch Ye Olde Side-Scroller. These posts are important because they confirm the type of conference the Game Connection was, and there was a mysterious confidentiality around the conference. This event, in hindsight, was probably the most influential part of Castle Crashers' development. We learned that the game has been completely changed and it's now being pitched to publishers before the public had a chance to see it. I was able to find a recap of Tom's trip to the Lyon Game Connection. You can see the conference rooms the developers are able to set up, the first look, the official design of what the game becomes, and you'll notice the blurred out name. I think at this point, or shortly before the Lyon Game Connection, Ye Olde Side-Scroller internally became known as Castle Crashers. Keep this purple banner in your mind for now as it comes up later on in our story. The last bit of information we get on the Lyon Game Connection is the platform for Castle Crashers. Tom posts, "If the decision wasn't already made at this point, I think the Behemoth needed to make a decision on what they wanted to develop for. My theory is that Microsoft was at the Lyon Game Connection conference and the Behemoth had the most success with them. Things and updates on Castle Crashers, which is the name I'll be using moving forward, began to change because I think it's because the Behemoth now has an idea who is going to be publishing the game." Our last update of a very busy 2005 comes from a blog post to Newgrounds by Tom the morning he and the Behemoth team left the Lyon Game Festival. He mentions here that IGN has listed their next game as one of the top 20 games to watch out for in 2006. I was able to find this article by IGN, and here's what they posted under their top 20 games of 2006 for Ye Olde Side-Scroller. Kinda funny knowing now that the game didn't end up releasing on the PS2. Also note the line that says this isn't the official name for Behemoth's next project. While I'm able to come up with some information on the creation of Castle Crashers, you have to imagine the behind-the-scenes conversations that are taking place between major gaming mediums like IGN, Tom, the Behemoth team, and future publishers. Keeping that in the back of your mind as we progress adds additional flavor to the overall story of Castle Crashers. Before we jump into 2006, there was one more bomb in 2005. An apparent leak of what was shown at the Lyon Game Connection which would become the public's first eye on what Castle Crashers would look like at the time. I couldn't find the leak itself, but I found this post on the Newgrounds forum and Dan Paladin's response. Dan confirms the leaks, where they came from, and confirms that the name has changed. 2005 came to an end, and Tom continued to post on Newgrounds, but it was mostly updates on holiday contests and Newgrounds stuff. – 2006 kicked off with a blog post on the Behemoth site titled "Working on the Next Game." This post tells us the new office is officially set up, and the Behemoth are flying team members in to finish key items of Castle Crashers. In February of 2006, Tom Fulp posted a job posting to Newgrounds. I think this is a position on the Behemoth, but I couldn't find anything that came out of it. In March, Tom posted a general news update which included updates on Castle Crashers, announcing the next public demo, which will be at Comic-Con 2006 this year, and some office updates. Comic-Con 2006 is in just a few months, beginning in the middle of July. The team continued to work on Castle Crashers, which is slowly becoming the name for the game, I promise. And in May of 2007, in a few responses to a user's post on the Newgrounds board, both Tom and Dan chime in on potentially having fan-generated content in the game. I wanted to point these out because, while this didn't happen, the game would source some of the soundtrack through a competition on Newgrounds that we're going to take a look at in just a bit. Before the journey to Comic-Con 2006 started, I was able to find this drawing Tom submitted to an art thread, and I'm not saying this is concept art, but I can see this guy in the painters fight during Castle Crashers. So right before Comic-Con 2006, when the Behemoth were going to show off a brand new version of Castle Crashers, on June 26th, Tom posted an update to Newgrounds about a robbery that happened that morning. As the Behemoth crew started their morning, around 7:45 a.m., there was a guy standing in front of the TV. One of the devs, Stamper, greeted the man assuming he was someone on the Behemoth team. Stamper reached out to Tom to ask who the guy in the room was. Tom didn't know either, so he went to check it out. By this time, the robber, who I assume was spooked he was just caught red-handed, dipped when Stamper mistook him for someone on the team, and he was now nowhere to be found. The group searched the office, and the only thing that was taken was a PS2 and a copy of Street Fighter. In hindsight, the Behemoth is lucky that this was the outcome of the robbery. The public hasn't seen Castle Crashers since Comic-Con 2005, and the game has gone through drastic changes, so just imagine what could have else been taken. As the chaos from the robbery settled, the Behemoth needed to get ready for Comic-Con 2006, where they would have a booth exclusively for the Behemoth and showing off their latest demo of their 4-player console game. On July 13th, Tom posted this update to the Newgrounds boards. I believe on July 19th, during Comic-Con's 2006 Pro Night, Ye Olde Side-Scroller officially became known publicly as Castle Crashers. On July 20th, Tom posted a bomb to the Newgrounds board that gave followers of this new game a ton of new information. I found this article from July 19th, the same night as the Pro Night, covering the new game. The article goes on to detail information about the all-you-can-quaff mode, which was also shown off at Comic-Con. The game is officially Castle Crashers, and Castle Crashers is running on Xbox 360s. I would be willing to bet that Microsoft was at the 2005 Lyon Game Connection, and Tom officially rules out GameCube for Castle Crashers, and we learn a little bit more about what Xbox Live Arcade is, for those who don't know. Comic-Con 2006 kicked off, and I was able to find this blog of the Behemoth's trip to Comic-Con. You can see shots of the booth, with the newly designed knights, an update from last year's Comic-Con. You can see the Xbox 360 dev kits that were running the game. And then remember this purple banner? Does this look familiar? This, in my opinion, proves that Castle Crashers was the name in December of 2005 when Tom went to the Lyon Game Connection show to pitch Castle Crashers. I was able to find some footage of the gameplay from Comic-Con 2006 too, Shout out to Ainge1Ake1 on YouTube for archiving this. You can see in the footage for the first time publicly more than just the knights are playable, and a familiar face is a playable character. The Behemoth, for the second year in a row, brought a playable demo to Comic-Con. This time, the game was in much better shape, and it was a positive sign for development as time went on. Directly after Comic-Con 2006, we got a few posts from Dan Paladin, which is the first look at the Castle Crashers website. Dan continues to respond to this thread, dancing around Xbox exclusivity and confirming details on the Knights. Tom posted to the Newgrounds boards on July 26 with some additional info on Castle Crashers. In this post, we also learned that Newgrounds was set to be redesigned, and the next time we'll see Castle Crashers will be at the Penny Arcade Expo, better known as PAX, next month. Right before PAX 2006, the Behemoth posted an update to their blog announcing that Castle Crashers will be playable for those in attendance. I couldn't find a ton of photos of the booth from PAX 2006, but check out their trip here. There's a few screenshots of Castle Crashers you can see. PAX was clearly a success because more gaming mediums began to pick up Castle Crashers and adding it to their upcoming games lists. Tom posted to Newgrounds about this media coverage, and we learned that GameTrailers.com has the trailers listed. After PAX, gaming mediums continued to speculate and report on Castle Crashers and give the game publicity. I also want to note that after PAX and the blog post from Tom, his updates on his blog really slowed down, and I think that was a combination of two things. Microsoft is now publicly Castle Crashers publisher, so they might have told him to hush hush, and Newgrounds began to grow more. Tom was growing Newgrounds, adding new features and working on a redesign, and Castle Crashers was continuously being developed. Tom was also the main programmer on the game, so it makes sense why things slowed down here. The rest of 2006 is pretty slow, and we really only get a few comments from Dan Paladin on the Newgrounds forums. The first is a response directly after PAX explaining the choice of Castle Crashers being launched on Xbox Live Arcade, which at the time was a risky move, but in hindsight was by far the best option for both Microsoft and the Behemoth. In October, Dan provided some more business details on selecting a publisher or being selected by one. 2006 wholesomely comes to an end with Dan's post thanking Tom, John, and the Behemoth. This post tells me that morale in the Behemoth is at an all-time high. The team is truly creating magic, and in just under 2 years, we'll find out for certain. In 2007, the Behemoth continued their game convention tour, and in February of 2007, the Behemoth and Tom announced that Castle Crashers was nominated for the Excellence in Visual Art, also making it eligible for the Audience Award at the Independent Games Festival, hosted by GameSpot in March of that year. Tom's post announces that the next public showing of Castle Crashers will be at Comic-Con in July of that year. While he says this, IGF, which occurs in March of that year, provides a ton of information on Castle Crashers. I think Tom meant the next time Castle Crashers will be playable to the public, which still might not even be true because it seems like the game was at IGF. This is the first year that the Behemoth and Newgrounds will be separate booths at the convention since 2003 when the Behemoth came together. Around the same time, Castle Crashers found itself at the center of a first controversy. There was an apparent fear that the Behemoth have created a racist game, something about the Knights resembling the KKK. Dan quickly responded and shot this down. It's pretty random, but it's funny looking back. On game trailers around the same time, you can see that Castle Crashers had 2 official trailers that were making the rounds on the internet. Through February, and on the road to the Independent Games Festival, the audience had an opportunity to vote for the indie game that they were most excited for. The Castle Crashers nomination read. And I have 2 thoughts here. Either Newgrounds users flooded the votes for Castle Crashers, or Microsoft helped Castle Crashers out here. The game was not playable to the public yet. but you might be surprised to learn that it did take home the award for the Audience Award, which is an award given to a game the audience is most excited to play. Apparently, they were nominated for the Audience Award because they were also up for the Excellence in Visual Art Award, which they also won. The Audience Award is the only publicly voted award at the IGF. Towards the end of IGF 2007, GameSpot hosted their reoccurring live show, On the Spot, on March 8th and had the Behemoth share a bit more info on Castle Crashers. I linked the entire video below, but there's a few parts I want to highlight. Shout out to GB Test Archive on YouTube, who seems to have archived most of GameSpot's On the Spot episodes. These are an awesome watch. We can see the Barbarian boss, the 4 princesses. We were able to take a look at the forest level, and to my knowledge, although it's been playable at different game conventions, this is the first look at the troll as well. Pretty cool to see, knowing that we are about a year and a half away from the actual release. The rest of the updates from IGF 2007 come from a blog post on the Behemoth's dev blog. It's mostly just pictures of people crowding around the booth, but there are some cool pieces of information towards the end. Some big names were there: Shigeru Miyamoto from Nintendo, and Cliff Bleszinski, the lead designer of the Gears of War series. It probably isn't a shocker that he hates this picture. IGF came to an end and the gaming mediums were picking up Castle Crashers both during and after the show. I couldn't find much for March and April of 2007, as I imagine the crew was deep in development in preparation for Comic-Con 2007. Before Comic-Con 2007, there was one more post on the Newgrounds forum, and it was to announce that there was going to be a contest and Newgrounds users can submit audio based on the Castle Crashers theme. This is pretty cool. Apparently they used a lot of the tracks in the original soundtrack too. Users were given references, which was really a one-stop shop for everything Castle Crashers related at the time. And there's a link to an interview between Dan Paladin, the game's lead artist, and GameZone. A few highlights from the interview. In the interview, we get some information on Xbox Live Arcade and why the Behemoth have decided to go that route. By mid-2007, the world knew what Castle Crashers looked like, what it played like, and that it was coming out on Xbox Live Arcade. At this time, the world didn't know when the game would come out, but the game was in full-blown marketing mode and development continued. The Behemoth blog posted an update on July 17th, 9 days before Comic-Con 2007, detailing their booth information and where to find them. For Comic-Con 2007, I was able to find the posts from the Behemoth on their trip, but unfortunately a ton of the pictures are broken and I couldn't get them to load. But we have pictures from one day of Comic-Con 07, and I was able to find some footage of the game from Comic-Con 2, which marks the 3rd year in a row the Behemoth was touring Comic-Con with Castle Crashers. The blog posts for each day really just detail the booth setup, and it doesn't show a ton of stuff related to Castle Crashers. I was able to find a solid recap of the Behemoth's Day 5 at Comic-Con, which had pictures of their marketing material, which includes these sweet Castle Crasher figures. The infamous purple banner makes a return, and the post continues. At the end, it ends with a shot of a crowd of people. The Behemoth had a new game mode playable at Comic-Con 2007, which was All You Can Quaff, the button mashing minigame that would end up launching with Castle Crashers. Leading up to, during, and after Comic-Con 2007, gaming media outlets continued to pick up Castle Crashers. The game is following a pretty traditional media coverage at this point, even though it was from a small indie studio. Lightning was in the bottle for Behemoth, and they just had to keep it in there for almost a year and hope it was still good to strike. The game convention tour continues, and after Comic-Con 2007, the Behemoth started prepping for PAX 2007, which was only 1 month away. PAX 2007 followed the same updates we've had, however, a new game mode would be shown off. We have a blog post from the Behemoth highlighting their time at PAX. I couldn't find a ton of pictures from PAX 07 because it seems like a lot of them are broken, But from the blog post we learned that Castle Crashers was playable, and they were testing the new arena mode that would eventually make its way into the game. At this point, in hindsight, we can say that we officially have an idea of what Castle Crashers would entail a year before the game releases. The game eventually launches with All You Can Quaff and the arena mode, so it's cool to think that almost a year before launch, the game seems to be this far along. A lot will change, which we'll see, but for the most part it's a pretty good idea of what Castle Crashers is and would be, and everyone was loving it. PAX at this time also started exploding. It was becoming one of the premier gaming conventions, and the Behemoth already had an in with them. So not only have Tom Fulp and the Behemoth been able to ride the wave of Newgrounds and the exploding internet culture at the time, but they were also riding waves from Microsoft and Xbox on the explosion of indie games on the Xbox Live Arcade and the Penny Arcade Expo, which would continue to grow and become a staple for devs to show their games early to the public. Tom and the Behemoth are now juggling 4 bottles, all filled with lightning. After PAX 2007, Tom posted an update to Newgrounds on the Behemoth's trip to PAX. The first half of the post is mostly about Newgrounds, but the bottom parts share a glimpse of what we can expect over the next year. The Behemoth was going military mode, and we finally see the phrase release date acknowledged for the first time by the devs. While development continued on Castle Crashers, the only notable things are Castle Crashers figures that were being sold at the conventions that year are now being sold on the Behemoth's online store, so the marketing continues to crank as we get closer to launch. 2007 was a busy year. I'm pretty sure Tom got married in the middle of the year, and they launched a redesign of Newgrounds, so it's pretty funny that juggling has become such an integral part of Castle Crashers, because Tom Fulp was the original master juggler, so it's only right how it fits in. Our final official word from the Behemoth comes in a 2007 recap posted on the Behemoth's blogs, which sets us up for 2008, the year of launch. Castle Crashers releases on August 27, 2008. As 2008 kicks off, we don't actually know the release date yet, but the marketing for Castle Crashers continues. One piece I found that was super interesting was an article posted on January 5th, 2008 that listed Tom Fulp as one of the top 10 internet millionaires under 30. The article was then posted to the Newgrounds boards, and Tom responded detailing that this might not be actually as crazy as it sounds. These are not bad names to be associated with at the time. The first official update comes from a blog post by Tom on January 15th titled First Quarter 2008. The Behemoth is deep into Castle Crashers, working on getting the game into alpha. One thing I will say is that they are most likely also preparing for any game conventions that year and launch. From this point on, the Behemoth slowly drip feed pieces of content through their Behemoth blog. In March of 2008, the Behemoth dev blog started posting a ton of looks at different Castle Crashers characters, weapons, animal orbs, and more. Dan Paladin, Castle Crashers' lead artist, was posting progress of the art to Vimeo, which I had a hard time finding, but there was a world map progress video and videos of different bosses being created. Unfortunately, a lot of these are broken and I couldn't get the videos to work, but the Behemoth's account was created right around this time. The first of these posts that I find was on March 17th, which provided a look at Dan creating the world map for Castle Crashers. Dan also confirms that this dev blog will be the go-to place for Castle Crashers moving forward. Emil, a member of the Behemoth, also posts letting us know what we can expect from the dev blog, and official forums have been set up. For the rest of March and most of April, the only updates were looks at characters, weapons, and animal orbs through the blogs. The Behemoth's blogs were posted over to the Newgrounds boards, where both Tom and Dan responded to add a little more information. Tom responds that Microsoft is doing their testing, and the feedback so far has been great. He also responds to some questions about price, how long it will take to complete, and if there will be any sort of beta or downloadable demo before the game launches. Lastly, he confirms that we might not get to see any new appearances until launch or Comic-Con, whichever would come first. On March 21st, the Behemoth dev blog posted that they plan to continue updates on the development of Castle Crashers, and this is when the drip feeding begins. All through April, the Behemoth begin to show off characters, weapons, and animal orbs. These updates continue until the eventual release of the game, as the Behemoth team were slowly building out these boards, showing off most of the playable characters, usable weapons, and animal orbs to collect. On May 16th, in a blog post to the Behemoth, we officially learned that Castle Crashers is completely completed. The game is at least a couple months out at this point, and there's no release date confirmed, and updates will continue to the dev blog as they gear up for launch. The dev blog would continue, filling in the character, weapon, and animal orb lists, and on June 10th, 2008, we would get an update from Tom Fulp on the Newgrounds boards. This update notifies us that Castle Crashers is officially in its third year of development, and they will be showing an official finished build of the game at Comic-Con in July of 2008. Comic-Con came first, and still no release date. Through June, the updates on characters, weapons, and animal orbs continued, and in July of 2008, E3 was happening. Castle Crashers and the Behemoth attended E3 at the time, and at this time, E3 was not a public event. So this isn't considered the public's first time with the finished build, but gaming mediums were able to go hands-on with the game and talk about it. I was able to find some articles from that time, and almost all the feedback was positive. GameSpot said they can't wait to see what other lures Castle Crashers will dangle before them. IGN said that they can't wait too, and whenever it's released, people will bet that it's worth the wait. Joystick said the game looked great, fun, looks terrific, and just might end up being the best original Xbox Live Arcade game ever. Boy, were they onto something. After E3, the Behemoth crew needed to immediately prep for Comic-Con 2008, which was in about a week. Comic-Con 2008 was massive for Castle Crashers. Because it is here, we officially get our release date. Presumably announced sometime during Comic-Con 2008, we learned that the game would be releasing on August 27th, 2008 via the Xbox Live Arcade. An official Behemoth blog post followed, announcing the release date to anyone who may have missed the news at Comic-Con. I was able to find some footage of what the game looked like at Comic-Con 08. Really, the biggest difference from any other clips we've seen up to this point are the player portraits up at the top, which now look like what we would eventually see in the final release. Post Comic-Con, in less than 1 month from release, we get an update from Tom titled Post Comic-Con News. In this post, he confirms the release date and that the game will be releasing 2 days before PAX 2008. Talk about a smart move. Smack dab in the middle of the 3 biggest gaming conventions that year, the Behemoth would be releasing Castle Crashers. Hype is at an all-time high, and it's only been amplified by the 3-year game convention tour the Behemoth found themselves on in the lead up to the launch of Castle Crashers. In the 3 weeks or so gearing up for launch, the Behemoth team dropped a few more looks at weapons and shared some sweet Castle Crashers Xbox Live Arcade marketing images. We also got a look at what the game can potentially cost, as that has not been confirmed yet, but that confirmation would come on August 14th, 2 weeks before launch, from Dan Paladin on the Behemoth dev blog. This would then be confirmed by Tom on August 22nd, about a week before the launch, on the Newgrounds boards. The Behemoth posted a 6-hour countdown on their blog, although they still didn't know the exact time the game would go live. And on the night of August 26th, Tom Fulp posted to the Newgrounds board titled Final Post, Castle Crashers Post. Castle Crashers is coming out tomorrow. And then an edit on the post occurred around 4 a.m. August 27th, stating, "Update, it is 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and Castle Crashers is now available for download." And the rest was history. Castle Crashers released on August 27th, 2008, and would go on to be a massive success and cult classic. At the time, it was estimated that over 100,000 people downloaded Castle Crashers within the first 3 days, breaking Xbox Live Arcade sales records. The game would go on to win the Xbox Live Arcade Game of the Year award and Best Co-op Mode award. In less than 10 months after release, the game would achieve over 1 million users. And to this day, between Xbox Live Arcade, Nintendo Switch, PC, and PlayStation, Castle Crashers has sold over 20 million copies worldwide. Tom, Dan, and the Behemoth deserve all the success Castle Crashers brought them. It's been about 15 years since the release of Castle Crashers, and with the recent release of a new Alien Hominid game, I hope the team is chugging along on a follow-up to Castle Crashers. If you're still watching at this point, thanks for tuning in. If there's any game you want me to cover next, just let me know. I tried to keep this video relatively short, so if there is more Castle Crashers content you want to see, let me know. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, friends.